All right. We're just going to start in just a couple of minutes. For those of you who are joining on Zoom, those of you who are joining in person, and those of you who are joining via YouTube live, we're just going to start in just a minute. Come in, and we haven't started yet. This is a class on working with buyers and the features and benefits of working with buyers. And thank you guys for being here. We are just going to get right into it and talk about working with buyers. And what we're going to be talking about today is your value proposition. You guys hear me talk about value proposition all the time. We're going to talk about that today and sort of pin down what do we mean, right? We're going to talk about something I call your secret sauce. Then we're going to talk about features versus benefits. And I'm going to define what I call a feature of a service or a product versus a benefit of a feature of a product or a service. Then we'll do some examples. And then as time permits, because there's some people live in the room here, we may do some role play and have some questions and we'll go from there. Does that sound okay? Awesome. All right, let's dig in. Your value proposition. Your value proposition is what you do in your job that is worth something to somebody else. Value, right? Because if what you are offering has no value, they are not going to want to pay you for it, right? Why should I pay you if what you are doing has no value for me? When you buy a candy bar at the variety store, at the Walgreens or the CVS, the person behind the counter takes your money, puts it in the till, and processes the transaction, makes sure that you get charged appropriately for everything. And their employer sees value in that, right? Their employer says, this is worth something to me to have someone behind the counter. Because if I didn't have anyone behind the counter, I'd need to spend lots of money on automatic systems, and there'd be still a worry about shoplifting and theft, right? Plus, it's good for my business because people like to deal with people, and it makes it more human and interactive and not just a machine. So that is why the employer is paying for the person at the store to hand you a candy bar that you pay for. Okay. That's a value proposition to that employer, right? Let me back up it. So for real estate, for us in real estate, there's a lot of real estate agents out there, right? Even in our own group, there's well over 40 here in the Oakland group. So the question then is what is your uniqueness such that someone you meet will be wanting you to help them with a real estate transaction? It's a lot more complicated than buying a candy bar, right? And it's more service oriented. It's as opposed to being a specific thing. The house is what is being sold, and you are facilitating. You are like a broker. You are a go-between. You are on behalf of the broker. You are connecting buyer and seller. Okay. And we're talking specifically about buyer value today, right? So how do we tell a potential buyer that calls us on Zillow? There's a couple of people who pursue online leads in our room today. How do we tell that person very quickly, in certain cases, that we're going to bring something of value to the table? Like when we're talking about an online lead that's phoning you from one of these online lead services, they're only thinking, I need this person. This person's a gatekeeper for me getting in the property. This person is a gatekeeper. They're holding me back from going to this look at it whenever I want. I need them right now to show me the house. But how do you convert that I need them right now into a client who will want you to help them with everything else, right? And if you just talk to friends that you meet at Starbucks, or friends from your previous job, or people that you meet at an open house, however it is you're encountering folks, How are you sharing with them why they should hire you? Okay, let's imagine someone's going to an open house and their idea is we're going to find a real estate agent today. And they're going to go to 3 or 4 open houses. How do you get them to think of you? Part of it comes down to your value proposition. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the basic job of a realtor today and how you can convert it into a statement that you could share with people that will make them think, ooh, I want to work with them. They know everything, right? I was talking to someone earlier today when we were doing a role play earlier today. Someone was telling me we were practicing, and this person kept saying to me as a lead, "Oh, I'm new to the business. I just got started in the business. This will be my first. I mean, I kept saying we don't want to use that kind of language. And one of the ways that we can talk such that we don't have that sense of imposter syndrome is by being knowledgeable about what our own job is, so that we can educate less educated buyers about what we do and why we're worth 3% on our transactions as buyers agents. So when we are thinking about value proposition, there's a second element. So the first element is knowing what we do and why it's of value. Okay, that's what we just talked about. But another thing, guys, is that you all have a secret sauce. Does anyone remember the commercials for McDonald's years ago, or Burger King, or somebody, one of these burger companies, and they talked about their secret sauce, their secret recipe? This has happened over the years with lots of companies. They say, you want our mayonnaise or our burger or our whatever because we have ingredient X, and ingredient X is the best thing since sliced bread, right? You guys have an ingredient X as well, each and every one of you, that is unique to you. Selena, what is your experience that's going to make you great for your clients? I think we've talked about it. Yeah. What kind of work were you doing before you came to real estate? Oh, yeah. This person understands banking, right? She knows how to talk about loans. She knows how to talk about finances to a degree in your role at the bank. Yeah, I'm sorry. But here's the important thing, Selena. The other folks in this room have different ones. So when you're meeting with people, you can talk about yourself. I bring value because of that. Ahmed, you speak another language, right? What's the other language you speak? Arabic. Don't you think that if you came across folks who are from Arab countries who speak Arabic, that they would see that as a value you would offer? Now, I'm not saying it's a huge market here, but it could be. You could actually target cultural events in the Arabic language community here in the Bay Area. We're very diverse here. It's not like you're the only Arab language speaker in the whole East Bay. I'm sure there are lots and lots of them. Don't you think that they would love to have someone who understands not just the language, but the culture? Each one of you have it. Someone else in here, at least one other person here speaks Spanish. That's huge. That's half our market. I'm studying Spanish so I can be better. Seriously, Duolingo, best thing ever. Best thing ever. I love it. I just love it. It makes a game out of it, and I'm every night. Anyway, doesn't matter. So every one of you has a secret skill. Maybe it's language, maybe it's experience. That's your secret sauce. It may not have anything to do with real estate, but it can be applied. Okay, so when we're having conversations with people out there, instead of saying, "Oh, I'm brand new, I don't know anything," change the way you think about this and say, "Boy, this person is going to be lucky to hire me because not only can I do this because I know exactly what it is and how it's going to help you, and here's why, but I also have X factor, the secret sauce." Each one of you does. Now, if you don't know what your secret sauce, and I'm terrifying you right now, then let's have a meeting about it. Let's have a one-on-one and dig it out. Okay. I'm happy to role play the value proposition dialogue anytime. Does anyone here know what my value proposition is? No. Well, I have experience, but a lot of agents have experience. Yes. So when I meet people on Saturday, I'm going to a trade show in Pleasant Hill, and I just printed out some flyers and some stuff. I've got a car full of stuff. And I'm going to go to this trade show and I'm going to have a table there, and people are going to come up and say, why are you, this is a trade show, not about real estate. It's a trade show for people with developmental disabilities to learn about services in the community for them. They're going to see my real estate signage and they're going to say, why are you a real estate agent here? And then I can go into my spiel. Well, actually, I specialize in serving clients with disabilities and their families. I know how to evaluate the property to see how accessible it'll be, how to evaluate the financing opportunities available, how to help you to find a home and modify it if you need to make it work. I also sell accessible homes. Here's a listing I have right now of an accessible duplex, lower level. So anyway, that's the way where we want to get to. We want to get to a level of confidence about our pitter patter, our spiel, whatever, where we speak with pride and confidence about it, not kind of a cowering, oh, I'm just new here. I don't really belong. I'm just fake. I'm just sort of like faking it. You have to believe in yourself and that each one of you offers something special. Okay. So let's be very clear. This is my definitions. I didn't go to a dictionary, didn't Google it. For our purposes today, a feature is a task associated with a job being performed or a service being provided. So the simplest way to think about this is you show properties to potential buyers as a buyer's agent. That's a feature. And it's the most well-known one. It is what all the people out there think you're going to do. You're going to turn the key in the lock. Woohoo. A tiny fraction of what we do, but it's very common. That's a feature. Okay. On the other hand, what we really want to focus on is benefit. Why the feature is helpful to the client, right? How you doing that feature is going to make such a difference that they would be willing to pay you for it. Because remember, you have to have a money conversation with every buyer now. You can't just say the seller will pay like you used to. They might, and they do in a lot of cases, but we can't rely on it. So we need to say, Mr. Buyer, you want to hire me. I am absolutely the right person for this. I'm so excited to have the opportunity to take you on this journey, go on this journey with you. I charge 3%, and here's why. And having done this workshop today, you're going to be able to say why. Not to mention my own personal secret sauce, right? Something like that. So for example, feature person prepares your tax return. It's tax season, right? So I'm thinking about taxes, right? The benefit of that is their knowledge and experience saves you money on your taxes. Why do we hire a CPA? Why do we pay money for what's the in TurboTax? Why do we pay money for that product or hire someone to do our taxes, an enrolled agent? We used to have H&R Block next door, but they're gone now. Now that's a bank. But why do we do that? Because we think that if someone prepares our tax return or we use this software that we pay money for, it's going to save us money on our taxes, way more money than we have to pay them or pay for that software. That's it. Okay. So if a buyer thinks that all we do is turn a key, how are we possibly worth tens of thousands of dollars? Right? That's the mindset shift we need to foster and teach. We are worth tens of thousands of dollars. We work really hard for our buyers. Some of you know this because you've sold some homes with buyers, right? It's hard work, and you're doing way more than just showing them the house. All real estate professionals should be able to do the features of the job. I'm going to go through the main features, the main tasks. You're all being trained on it, or you already have done it. It's all what all real estate agents do. But you are not just a vanilla agent out there. You are a unique business professional. So it is sadly true that most real estate professionals are not able to explain why these things that they do are important. And they're not able to explain clearly why they should get paid to do those things. That's what we want to get more strong on, right? Okay. So the first one is needs assessment. So we're just going to go through them and talk about them. Needs assessment. So the idea here is, I'm going to pick on someone in the room. Z goes on a meeting and he sits down and he asks lots of questions. Oh, Mr. Buyer, why are you interested in this neighborhood? Tell me about this neighborhood. What is it about it that excites you? And how many bedrooms are you looking for? And how many bathrooms? And tell me about the kitchen. Do you need a big kitchen or a small kitchen? And tell me about parking. What kind of vehicle do you drive, or where do you need to park, or where do you need access for your motorcycle or whatever, right? Where are you, how are you going to use the uh, the backyard, or do you need a backyard, right? What kind of things do you like to do outside near the house? How close does the house need to be to your job, to your recreation, or your church, or your whatever it is? We ask lots of questions, you know. That's a needs assessment. I met with a fellow yesterday and we did a needs assessment, and it became really clear that there was a conflict. On the one hand, he wanted to um, have a house in a quiet place with a lot of lot space around the house because he's a bit of a loner and doesn't want to interact with his neighbors. And on the other hand, his budget kind of limits him, and he wants a house. So that rules out a condo or a townhouse if he wants that space, right? But he also is looking at small, large square foot houses, and he has a budget limit. And so in our built up area here in Oakland, most of the houses that are in his price range are not are that are big enough. Most of those houses that are big enough that are in his price range are on smaller lots. Most of the lots in Oakland under a certain price, the lots are pretty small. So it's a bit of a thing that we learn to be able to assess. So clarifying, how do we go above and beyond? So every real estate agent should be doing a needs assessment. How do we take it from there? Well, we clarify what they really need versus what they want. So in the example I just gave you, I had a hard conversation. I said, listen, if I could get you one or the other, which one would you prefer? Would you prefer to stay close to Oakland? Because I certainly can find this for you in Concord, right? At your price point, right? Or is it more important for you to have that space? And then you'd have to look at outside of Oakland. So clarifying what they really need versus what they want on when there's limitations, sometimes financial, sometimes other things. The more you help your client understand and work through the prep steps before they even go look at a house, for example, financial pre-approval is this one example, the more you are bringing value to them. How many of you have worked with clients who are not particularly sophisticated shoppers of houses? Okay. So one of the values that you can bring, James, is by being a teacher, by being an educator, by helping them to understand what's really going on here. Because even though we think that everybody knows more than us, the sad truth is, or the good truth for you, is that you guys are already better trained than most other realtors, and you know more than the average person that is calling you. Even if it's a dear friend who's bought a house before, you know stuff they don't know. If you have someone who bought a house 20 years ago and is now looking at buying a new house, maybe they're not selling the one, they just need to buy a place. Um, the market's changed dramatically in 20 years. The way we do real estate transactions has changed a lot in 20 years. And they probably have been focused on other parts of their lives and haven't been thinking about that experience 20 years ago. Their memory of it is vague. So your needs assessment with them is a critical step. And these things that you do extra beyond just asking them the questions are very important. Connecting the buyer with key business partners. We talk about this all the time. You want to have a resource list so that you can refer them to the right plumber or the right home inspector or the right lender partner. Some of them aren't pre-approved yet, right? Um, those are all things you could do. Does anyone else think of something you would do as part of the needs assessment that would help your clients with this part? Anyone have any thoughts? Anything you're doing or that you'd think you'd want to do that isn't mentioned here under going above and beyond? What about a pre-meeting questionnaire? I use a pre-meeting questionnaire before I even meet with them. So I already know the questions to ask if they fill it out. I already know what I should be concerned with, right? What and that helps me to serve them better in the meeting, and that makes the time more valuable to them. And they think, "Oh, this has really been a good use of my time. I like him. I'll hire him." There's a direct correlation between doing a really good needs assessment and doing a really good initial consultation than and getting the client. All right. Oops, it looks like someone was here and I didn't let them in. Let me let the person in. Okay, so any questions about this one? All right, let's keep going. The next one on the list is finding property. So your the feature of any agent who has got a license is they often will find property. Now, in our day and age, you might be thinking the buyer finds the property. They just find it on a third party website or doing an internet search. Well, that's not true at all. We oftentimes are often using our search tool. That's the first thing. They're often using our search tool to find properties. But the second thing is there are a lot of our clients who are not going to be using internet tools to find property. Some of them are a little bit older, maybe, or maybe not particularly computer savvy. Maybe English isn't their first language, whatever. Um, you become a huge resource in terms of helping them to find properties that meet that criteria. Would anyone agree with me that buying a house for someone who is a first time buyer can be very intimidating? You send them a list. You set up your MLS, you send them a list with 400 houses on it. How do you think it makes them feel? Overwhelmed. There is a huge role for you to play in reducing the overwhelm of all the properties that might be out there for them to find on the internet by creating your own. One of the reasons I really encourage my clients to look at my search criteria, my dripping system, we call it an e-drip, my system for sending them properties instead of using third parties is because it reduces the overwhelm. And I say that to them. You know, you can go on the internet and find properties on all these different sites, but just I'm going to send you everything. And at least it'll be in one general space and we'll all be on the same page. I'll be able to communicate with you better about what you're interested in. And you don't have to worry about missing anything or being bombarded with lots of different things. So when we're finding property for our clients, either by setting them up on a drip or by what I'm going to talk about, we can bring huge benefit to them. So if you one of the big values in our business is information that you have that your buyer doesn't have. So what if you did just a little bit of research on the properties before you sent them out? Maybe at the very least, you're going to send them 20 properties. Isolate the top 3 that you think are really good matches based on the needs assessment and focus on them and find out a piece of information that isn't on the internet about the property or that they won't have to go look for themselves on the internet. Now you're very valuable. So Ahmed, you're sitting down with me. You're a buyer and we are talking about 3 properties that you might want to go see. And I'm telling you stuff about them that you didn't read online. And you did your research online. You went to those sites. Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that about the neighborhood. Aren't I worth more to him now? Call top listing agents and other agents with recent sales in the area to get information. So you're gonna think, well, where am I gonna get hidden information? Call someone who has a pending, a buyer agent who's got a pending in the neighborhood, a pending listing, or call a listing agent that it just went into contract or is active or just had a sale and say, hey, listen, I'm sorry to bug you, but I am doing some research. I have a buyer in the area where you just closed 27 Main Street. Tell me about that street. I understand it's getting a lot of traffic. Was that an issue for your sale? Yeah. Or whatever the question is. Do you know anything about what's going on with that lot, that vacant lot across the street? Whatever. Is there anything you can tell me that might help my buyer make a good decision about that neighborhood? And then you share it with your client. Um, You work for a big brokerage. There's lots of off-market listings. How do you find out about them? Go to the team meetings, first and third Wednesday of every month in the Oakland office, second and fourth in Castro Valley, every week on Mondays in Palo Alto, and every other Tuesday in Fremont. Go. Find out what people are bringing to market that are coming soon. We also publish on the portal a coming soon list. Be knowledgeable. And also, let's suppose you can't go to the meetings live and you don't find anything you like on the coming soon list on the portal or the off-market listing on the portal. You can phone them directly. We're all very friendly here. You can phone the top producer or top producers and say, if it's a really big team, say, who on your team can talk to me about your coming soon listings or your off markets? They'll be impressed that you're calling, by the way. They won't think you're bothering them. I mean, they might be busy in the moment. Let me talk to you later. But most of our agents will be thrilled that you called. Access to off-market listings. Let's see, door knocking. Let's suppose you have a buyer who's specifically interested in a specific neighborhood or a specific complex. Why not go talk to neighbors in advance about whether they, number one, do they want to sell their unit, but also, or their house, or what can they tell you about the neighborhood? Now, maybe you want to host an open house in a neighborhood where you've got a buyer. That'll also help you gain intelligence about what's going on in that neighborhood. You could do golden letters. So there's an example of a golden letter on the portal, and that's the idea of where you send out a whole bunch of letters, direct mail, to a group of houses. And the letter says something like, Dear Mr. Seller, I have a serious buyer interested in your house. Please give me a call. I'd love to talk to you about whether you might want to sell it to him. Doesn't need to be fancy. There's actually marketing strategies on KW Connect about how to really make golden letters a whole thing. There's an agent up in another state who does this, and that's all he does for lead gen. He doesn't do open houses. He doesn't do all these other things. He just does golden letters, and he's having a very good career. So these are some examples. Can anyone think of any other ways that you can help buyers to find the right property in a way that distinguishes you from the crowd?
One thing I would say or like to get into more is off-market listings, like you said, but how do we get with other brokerages that?
So there is some issues about marketing so we have something called clear cooperation. So if you have a listing that is off market, you're not supposed to promote it outside of your own brokerage. So that's harder. But we have a big office here, and there's plenty of agents who would be happy to tell you about their off markets, even within our own. But in terms of off markets from other brokers, it's a bit trickier because you're not supposed to be having preferential treatment. There's a kind of, if it's not, anyway, you could research clear cooperation and find out more about those rules. Okay. In fact, if you're going to have a listing and you're not going to put it on the MLS right away and keep it off market, your seller has to sign extra paperwork, and they need to be understanding that by not putting it on the MLS, another buyer who is willing to pay more might not show up, right? So it gets to be a big deal if you are listing, if you have an off market. All right. Let's talk about showing property. Well, obviously, another very straightforward part of our business, by doing this, we give access to homes to people who wouldn't otherwise be able to get inside them. Because most sellers want some restriction, some control over who goes inside their house, even if it's vacant. And presumably, a competent agent will know something about the house they're showing and know something about the neighborhood where the house is. But how do you go further? How do you make it an experience for your client? First of all, preview the house yourself before you show it. Oh my God. Now it takes more time. I love that. He's going 20 minutes early, he's checking out the house. So that what happens, James, because you do that, how does it make a difference in your showing?
Countertops, stainless steel appliances, newer cabinets, all that stuff. So I'm able to, describe the property like it was my list, basically.
Right. And he's probably reviewed the disclosures too. So that makes him shine because that other agent he was talking to who showed him a property didn't know anything about the houses. He just said, go look, let me know what you think. I promise you, most agents do not do this. You should do it. It will distinguish you from the crowd. Customize a home tour. We have an agent in one of our other offices who makes the showing experience of going out a whole thing. She has a tray and she serves tea and she has special customized booklets for the property she's going to show. It's a whole experience with her. And I'm thinking, this is brilliant. When they finish buying that house, those buyers are going to remember this person. I never had that before. What a cool, it was fun to go look at property. She always served my favorite tea and lovely biscuits. Lisa, my wife and I go and get she goes for mani-pedis and I get pedicures. And by the way, yeah, you're laughing, but men get pedicures. But here's the important thing. The place where we go has these lovely cookies on the counter. So when you finish your pedicure or manicure or both, you couldn't have one of these lovely cookies that you don't see anywhere else, or at least I don't. And so that's memorable to me. Now I don't go there for the cookies, but experiences. We want to give our clients experiences that distinguishes us. Share info from the listing agent, neighbors, and colleagues. Yeah, if it's a neighborhood you're farming, you'll be even smarter because you'll have talked to neighbors who will give you the lowdown on what's really going on. All right. Sharing, reviewing disclosures. This is a big one where most agents are super lazy, not KW agents, but most agents outside of us, right? Now, obviously, we have an obligation as a buyer's agent to help the client understand the paperwork. It's complicated, it's lengthy. We have a legal obligation to make sure our buyers have a complete package, nothing missing. Make sure we work with the agent on the other side to get the missing documents. Typical, the HOA package, the package is missing HOA docs. That happens all the time. Or the package is missing a natural hazard report. I have a whole class on my coaching channel about how to look at a whole disclosure package and assess what's there and what isn't there, and know how to go forward as an agent, a buyer's agent. I have a class on that. Anyway, how do you go above and beyond when you're doing this process with your client? Well, calling the listing agent to get things explained before your client asks is always a good idea. You should be review. If you have a client who is serious about a property, they're thinking about writing an offer, you want to read that disclosure package, not so that your client doesn't have to. Your client has to read the disclosures, or you have to really push them hard to read the disclosures. But if you read them, you may have a really good idea of some of the red flags, some of the issues to look out for, having taken my other class. And then you will be able to get ahead of it and maybe even have answers from the listing agent before you even meet with your client. How impressive is it when you're on the phone with your client, you're writing an offer, and they said, Stephen, I didn't mention it in my call when we were looking at the disclosure package yesterday, but I forgot to ask you this item on the home inspection report about the what's it in the widget of the furnace. Do you know anything about that? And then you can say, well, I'm so glad you asked me that because I talked to the listing agent and this is what we learned about that. Something like that. You're going to look like you're totally on top of your game, right? The other thing we do is help our clients understand the relative importance of different disclosure items. Now, you got to be careful here because legally we cannot tell a buyer that this is important and that's not important. Okay, so I want to be really clear about that. Your client should read and review all the disclosures, and your message should be to them, please ask me any questions you have about anything you don't understand or that you're concerned about. And in order for us to answer that question effectively when we get it, we need to know what's really relevant and going to be a go, no go kind of decision, and what is something that needs further investigation. For example, something that needs further investigation is a leak underneath a pipe in the crawl space. Very common. How big a deal is it if it's a 1940s house and the receptacle for the power has reverse polarity? Probably less worrisome. And you can talk to the inspectors too. There's nothing to stop you from calling the inspector that the seller used and asking them questions about their report. I would do it with the seller's agent's permission first, especially if it's someone you don't know. Why not? Your ability to share with potential buyers of all this that you're going to do that I'm telling you about right now is where you're going to win. Okay? Because as I said at the beginning, other agents out there either don't do all these things or they certainly don't advertise that they do all these things in a consultation meeting. Right? This is what helps. Because what are buyers worried about? Buyers are worried about buying a lemon, right? Everyone who buys any big thing, car or a house, want to make sure they're getting good value for their money. They want you to reassure them or not. Tell them the lowdown. Be totally straight with them. It doesn't matter if it's going to blow up the deal. You want to be completely straight with them. And if there's a problem, if you bring it to their attention, you're a hero. Especially if they wouldn't have seen it, obviously, themselves. Okay, CMAs. Speaking of CMAs, I'm doing a CMA workshop the first week of April. Going to be fun. Bring your laptops. Anyway, help client understand market conditions and local comparable prices to establish a fair price. That's the benefit. Pretty straightforward. Buyer turns to us and says, what should I offer? And you can say, well, Mr. Buyer, here's 2 other 3 bedrooms. That one had a pool. This one had an amazing view. So this one is overpriced because he didn't factor in the fact that he doesn't have a view and doesn't have a pool. And his kitchen is dated. Right? And blah, blah, blah. The garage isn't finished the way the garage is finished in the other unit. So that's our basic job, right? Help them to establish the price. But what if before you met with your buyer and talked about pricing and sent them, maybe you send them the CMA, but before you talk to them about it, what if you call the listing agent for comps to learn about the listing agent of the comparables is what I mean there. Call the listing agent or the buyer's agent for closed deals on the comparable sales and verify the number of offers they got, the sale price under contract for pending listings because it's not published, and any other circumstances in the neighborhood of the house that impacted the price. Isn't it better if you meet with a buyer and you say to that buyer, yeah, that house across the street, it looks like a good comp, but I talked to the buyer's agent and blah, 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 as opposed to not having that information and just treating it, you're not serving your buyer as well. So we can really get really better with CMAs the more we dig deep beyond the numbers on the report. Another feature of our job is we review the contract and associated offer paperwork. This is a big deal. We make a big deal about it in your first month. We say, finish this new agent assignment, write up a fictional offer for your mentor, or else we're not going to let you host an open house. We have all this stuff. Why? Well, of course there's liability. The brokerage needs to make sure you don't go out there and do something wrong, right? But the bigger issue is, this is an important part of the whole thing. Your buyer is probably doing one of the biggest financial transactions of their life. Do you think they're nervous? Right? So our job, by knowing the contract inside out and the associated offer paperwork, is like basic. How would you go above and beyond to when you're getting ready with the contract? Well, first of all, verify the buyer's pre-approval, especially if it's a lender you don't work with. Right? Call the lender, right? Is this approval still good? What kind of things could happen that would mess it up? Does he need 30 days to close or can we close in 20? Can he waive the loan contingency or can we not waive the loan contingency? Proof of funds. Is your buyer's proof of funds adequate to cover the down payment and the closing costs? Is the information the buyer is giving you current? There are agents out there who still don't include proof of funds when they submit offers. It's not a standard thing. You want to absolutely have proof of funds with every offer you submit. Explaining the intricacies of contract terms and contingencies. We teach about that. There's a class on the portal about how to explain buyer contingencies. Setting expectations regarding contract timelines and closing. One of the most important things in human communication is setting appropriate expectations of future conversation. So when you are reviewing the contract and associated offer paperwork with the client, you want to set an understanding about these timelines, when the deal's going to close, some of the steps along the way. When we start working with a buyer, we often talk about a home buying process, and we have these one-pagers, and that's all fine and good. But explaining to the client what is going to happen in the escrow, that's a powerful thing for you to do. Make them feel a little less nervous. And by the way, on Monday, I'm teaching a class on escrow management, just saying, where we're going to talk about all that stuff. Review the offer paperwork with the buyer prior to. What if you went over the sales? How many of you have done this? If any of you go over the sales paperwork before you even have a property, or before you write the offer on the paperwork? No? Why not? You have a first-time home buyer. They don't know anything. What if you were to meet with them before you identify the property and say, hey, I know this is your first home and I take it really seriously. Let's spend an hour and let's go over the paperwork in advance, so that when we actually are on the stress levels up because we're writing an offer, you already know this paperwork and you'll feel just a little less, it will feel just a little less unfamiliar to you. Wouldn't that be great? What if you said on a buyer appointment, I take this very seriously, Mr. First-time home buyer. I know this is stressful for many of us. It's a big, big transaction. There's nervousness. But, one of the things that I do that most of my competitors don't do is I will actually review the contract with you even before we find the house. What? Really? Don't you think that's going to distinguish you? Oh, wow. I want to work with James. He just makes me feel so relaxed about this stressful thing. Offer preparation and submission. I have a class on this on the portal too. How to write a winning offer. Okay. So assembling the paperwork and signatures, the main part of offer prep is that we assemble the paperwork, we get signatures, and we professionally make sure it's all done right, reduce technical mistakes. By the way, it might shock you to know that many agents submit offers that have technical mistakes on them. Offers that have a lot of fields left blank that should be filled in, offers that have contradictory offer terms. I mean, the use of the grid has really helped to simplify things, because in the old days before the grid, where you had to put stuff on the page was anywhere in all the pages. Page 4 had stuff, page 7 had stuff, page 2 had stuff. Everything was all over the place. The grid really helped streamline it so that we know we just have to go down that and fill in all that stuff. So that's been really helpful. But still, there are still technical mistakes that get made. So that's the main job, right? But how do we go above and beyond? Submit well-written, well-presented, and professional-looking offers, and make it easy for the agent on the other side, the listing agent, to recommend your offer. One small little advice from that column: have the buyer's lender call the listing agent before the offer gets looked at by the seller. Submit the offer, have your lender call, or the buyer's lender call. Mr. Listing Agent, I'm Bill Smith from XYZ Mortgage, and I just wanted to call you about the offer submitted by Stephen Beard and his client. Yeah. Well, I just wanted to let you know that I've worked with Joe and Ann for years, and this is like, they're just wonderful people. This is not their first offer, but their financing has actually improved, and now they have an extra, they have enough reserves in the bank that they can close. There's not going to be an issue with them closing. Their underwriting looks fantastic, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, a lender would say it better than I just did, but that's going to show really good on you. And it's another thing you can promote to buyers. why they should hire you. I'm going to write an offer that has the best chance of getting accepted. So long as your offer is competitive, Mr. Buyer, I'm going to get it accepted for you. Way more times than not. All right. Negotiations. So for those of you who are in the class this morning, we heard an amazing story of negotiation, right? Saving your client money by getting them the best price. All too often, we have we have what we think is a happy client, and they are a happy client who is willing to spend more money than they need to. How do we continue to fight with them without allowing our own ego and desire to get into contract get in the way? So how do you go above and beyond? Well, first of all, ask questions of the agent on the other side to understand their client motivations. Understanding comparable sales data. That's what we heard about this morning. They use the comp data to justify why they were not going to take the counteroffer that they had received and wanted the seller to come down some more, right? Use business partners such as lenders to help support bargaining stance. Some certain circumstances you can bring your buyer lender in and say, to help say, well, they just can't go any higher. Sometimes you could play that card, right? Consult with other agents in the brokerage. So if you're in the new agent coaching program, your mentor is an amazing asset, as am I, your coach. And then managing escrow. Ensure smooth transaction and low stress for the client, overcome the complexity of real estate transactions. We've been talking a little bit about this already. Setting clear expectations because you have an organized calendar of events and advisories. The moment you get into contract, your job is not over. You need to get this across the finish line. And one of the first things you're going to do is send your clients a list of what's going to happen when are things going to happen. Don't leave them hanging. Yes.
Question. Talking earlier about his client he had, as far as what was it about? They were offering XYZ and they didn't want to show the fund or something like that. How do we do that as far as if they have more money in the bank?
So there's only one choice. They should send you a bank statement that shows less money. You do want to show proof of funds, but you don't want to show that they got an extra $500,000. So it's tricky. They can transfer the money into a different account, open a new account for the money they want to show, plus closing costs, right? Down payment, or they just eat it and show it.
They get a letter from the bank, say that they have the money.
Well, no, a bank statement is standard. But what you could do is, if you're really worried about it influencing the seller, you could send a letter saying, please don't be misled about my client's capacity to go up higher. That money is set aside for his sister's cancer surgery or something. Never be dishonest. Don't lie. But you could write a letter of explanation. But you know what? I am inclined to advise you not to worry about it, because most listing agents are not going to use that as a leverage play. And why? They aren't going to use it because most agents, especially professional agents, know that the buyer is only going to pay what they want to pay. You can't get more money from them. I mean, you can't sell a $1 million house for $1.5 million just because the buyer has $500,000 in their bank account. That ain't going to happen. And most solid listing agents get that. So they're going to try to get the most they can, but your buyer always still has the capacity to say no. So it's not necessarily going to hurt them it might in a very competitive thing where they'll come back and but on the other hand, there's certain things you don't want to get, where do you want to draw a line and how hard you're going to fight for something? It may be very inconvenient for your buyer to open a new bank account, right? You know what? You let it go, right? You can't get everything all the time. It's a good question though. Setting clear expectations, making sure all parties are fully informed every step of the way, anticipating potential issues in advance, clear two-way communication sign-offs with all parties. What the heck is that? So Michelle sends me a text, Stephen, can we show the property tomorrow? I send her a text saying, sure, no problem. We're not done yet. She needs to sign it off by sending me back a text that says, thumbs up. Great, no problem. Always close the communication loops, guys. Don't leave them hanging. And that's usually 3 minimum, usually an odd number. Manage the turbulence as a professional. Yeah, turbulence. Do things go wrong in real estate transactions? They do. And so your job is to not be freaking out on the outside. You might be freaking out on the inside, but do not ever be freaking out on the outside. Mike did a very good job of that, by the way. He didn't tell you the whole story. There was a lot going on in that negotiation for him personally, and he did it like a pro. Okay. You are the professionals. You have your client's best interests at heart. So again, there's a whole class on this Monday at 1:30 on Zoom and on my YouTube channel. Escrow management. Okay. All right. Any questions? Helpful? Okay. So we're going to do a little role play because we have a few minutes left. And if you, those of you who are on, I think a couple of you are on Zoom, you're welcome to do this as well. But we'll start with somebody in the room. I want somebody in the room to try to express in 30 seconds or a minute what their value proposition is. No pressure. How many of you feel you can articulate as if I were sitting across from you and at an office where you might want me to hire you to be your buyer, but you might want me to hire you to be my agent. Yeah, she did. But Selena feels really pressured in these situations, so I don't want to pick on her anymore. Yeah, poor thing. She doesn't have she'll sell a home or two and then she'll be fine. So Terry, why should I hire you? Buyer's agent.
I
Uh-huh.
give me some knowledge about the I love that word, but how the house is,
Mm-hmm.
what is it needed?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that will be good for negotiation. I
Mm-hmm.
can
Mm-hmm.
and I can interpret or understand what the test report comes up.
Like the pest report, let's just talk about that for a sec. So you think that you can evaluate a pest report in a different way than the average agent?
I will know how much it will cost to repair certain things.
So do you think pest reports are sometimes overinflated on how much they want to charge for things?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. We talk about that. They overcharge. So you are going to be able to bring that value to any buyer, and you probably can help them understand the home inspection report too, right?
Yeah.
Now that gets at a really important thing that's important to buyers, not feeling like that overwhelm, that sense of this is huge, I don't want to make a mistake. Terry's going to make us feel more reassured, so maybe we hire her. What about you, Michelle? How do you share your value proposition when you're across the table from somebody?
I try to make it more of a conversation.
Mhm.
I've noticed when I try to like pitch it, I'm like yapping.
Yeah.
So I try to stick to like
What are your 3 main things? See, yeah, about the property or about working with you. Yeah, she just wears her enthusiasm like on her sleeve, right? And it makes people love you. It's great.
I focus on like I know the area very well. I am one specialty for me is guard one houses. Need someone on their handyman's like electricians, plumbers, like anything. I do because finding a house is one thing, but the minute we go into it and we start evaluating and tracking what's wrong, we don't want to pay for something that's gonna fall.
So can everyone tell? Thank you. Can everyone tell? No, but doesn't she sound practiced?
Yeah.
Confident? She knows what she's doing. I would hire her. A couple more deals. You won't be so shy about this. You've got it. You've got it. But I know, but you will. You'll internalize it. You've already internalized it, but you'll internalize better and better scripts. Do you guys think that I was able to just do these things off the top of my head 20 years ago? It's like not. I only I'm just one person. There are a lot of great people with lots of scripts and dialogues out there.
Action.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
In front of many people, it can be.
Intimidating. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, we get over it. Yeah, you're right, Terry. Doing role play in a group is very different than doing it at a coffee shop or in,
Exactly.
Jeff or Macy, I see you guys on Zoom. Do you guys have any questions or anything to contribute about the role play or about this conversation?
Actually, for me, I think that I will bring it.
Macy, I can't hear you. Hold on, please. I have a feeling my volume's super low. Macy, can you say that again?
Yes, can you hear me?
Now we can, yes.
Okay, well, actually, I will tell the buyer that, I know to buying a house is a big investment, but, to going, and I would like to go for the journey with you together. And, because I'm come from investors, so I know, what is the buyer's expectation. So for me, I can bring to you the value is I speak English and Cantonese. I do, design and remodel the single family home. And, and I have some, licensed contractor that I can, if you need it, I can refer to you some of the, contractors for your project. And also, for the home inspection, there's a lot of information included. And I can, I will, go over with you, if there's anything that is critical, that is in red flag, I can bring it up to your attention.
That's great. That's just fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Now we're out of time, but I do want to say that let's suppose you've been sitting here quietly and you're thinking, OMG, I don't know this. I don't feel comfortable talking to people about my value proposition. I don't know how to do this. I am offering myself to role play it with you one on one without any other voice, other people to judge you or feeling like you're being judged. Set up a one on one with me and we'll figure it out. Because being able to explain this to someone you meet on a phone call or a text message, or you're meeting them at the property for the first time to show them a property, you have a short period of time to establish your credentials. Or meeting a friend at a coffee shop who's just sort of thinking about it. Or maybe it's a lead from an open house, whatever it is. You want to have practice it a little bit. You want to have some ideas in your head about what you're going to say. And so don't be scared into non-action. Take action so that you can be ready for those conversations.
Is most difficult thing is not selling the product.
That's right. Thee just pointed out, you're not selling the product, you're selling yourself. The house is the product, but your job is to get hired to represent the house, represent the seller, right? Sorry, represent your buyer in buying the house that will sell itself in a way. The buyers fall in love with the houses they fall in love with. There's only so much you can do. You can bring their attention to houses they might not have noticed, but they're the ones who are going to say, I want that one. And in fact, if you get in the habit of selling a house, that comes across as inauthentic. I just saw a movie which had some real estates in it. It was Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks did a movie last year called Here, Here. Did you see it? And there were real estate agents strewn throughout this movie. I didn't think it was a great movie. It was a strange movie. But those real estate agents were not good agents because all they were doing was sell, sell, sell. This house is perfect for you because of this. This house is perfect for you because of that. And to me, that's way too heavy-handed. Way too heavy-handed.
You should, I've learned this in the last few weeks that basically you should not force your opinions onto the.
Of course not. You're not the one buying the house. Now, what you should be doing is saying, the house has this feature and that feature that you might not have been aware of. Some of my buyers like this type of kitchen styling. Some of my buyers are really attracted to a fireplace because of the ability for it to be really cozy and warm on those cold winter nights. You know, there's nothing wrong about it, but to say you should buy the house, it has this and this and this, that kind of energy is not what we're looking for here. So, yeah. No, go ahead. Yes. Do you see yourself living in this house? Make it all about them, not about you trying to push product. So Z, you raised a very good point. Thank you. Very good point. Part of the role of us is to help our buyers make good decisions, not to make decisions for them or, God forbid, tell them what they should think. Yeah. Anyway, we're out of time. Thank you everyone for being here. It's great to have such a good live audience and for participating. And I hope it was a helpful discussion. And I'm going to say goodbye to the folks on Zoom and the folks on now. Thank you, everybody.